There was a couple who took a trip to England to shop in a beautiful antique store to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. They both liked antique and pottery, and especially teacups. Spotting an exceptional cup, they asked, "May we see that? We have never seen a cup quite so beautiful." As the lady handed it to him, suddenly the teacup spoke. "You don't understand. I have not always been a teacup. There was a time when I was just a lump of clay. My master took me and rolled me, pounded me, and patted me over and over. I yelled out, 'Don't do that. I don't like it. Let me alone.' But he only smiled and gently said, 'Not yet.' I was placed in a spinning wheel, and suddenly I was spun around and around. 'Stop it! I'm getting dizzy. I'm going to get sick,' I screamed. But the master only nodded and said quietly, 'Not yet.' He spun me and poked me and prodded and bent me out of shape to suit himself, and then he put me in a oven. I never felt such heat. I held and knocked and pounded at the door. 'Help! Get me out of here!' I could see him through the opening, and I could read his lips as he shook his head from side to side. 'Not yet.' When I thought I couldn't bear it any other minute, he opened the door. He carefully took me out and put me in the shelf, and I began to cool. Oh, that felt so good. This is much better, I thought. But after I cooled, he picked me up and brushed and painted me all over. The fumes are horrible, I thought. I could gag. 'Oh, please stop it, I cried. He only shook his head and said, 'Not yet.' Then suddenly he put me back into the oven. Only it was not like the first one. This was twice as hot, and I just knew I could suffocate. I begged, I pleaded, I screamed, I cried. I was convinced I would never make it. I was ready to give up. Just then the door opened and he took me out at the shelf, where I cooled and waited, wondering what he's going to do with me next. An hour later, he handed me a mirror and said, 'Look at yourself.' And I did. I said, 'That's not me. That couldn't be me. It's beautiful. I'm beautiful.' Quietly he spoke. 'I want you to remember.' Then he said, 'I know it hurt to be rolled, pounded, patted, but had I just left you all alone, you would have dried up. I know it made you dizzy to spin around the wheel, but if I'd stopped, you would have been crumbled. I know it hurt, it was hot and disagreeable in the oven, but if I hadn't put you there, you would have cracked. I know the fumes were bad when I brushed and painted you all over, but if I hadn't done that, you would never have hardened. You would have had any color in your life if I wouldn't have painted. If I hadn't put you back in a second oven, you wouldn't have survived for long because the hardness could not have held. Now you are a finished product. Now you are what I had in mind when I first began with you.' The moral of the story is, God knows what He is doing for each of us. He is the potter and we are His clay. He will mold us and make us and expose us to just enough pressures, to just right kinds, that we may have been made into a flawless piece of work to fulfill His good, pleasing and perfect will. So, when life seems hard and you are being pounded and patted and pushed almost beyond endurance, when your world seems to be spinning out of control, when you feel like you are in a fiery furnace of trials, when life seems to stink, try this. Brew a cup of favorite tea in your prettiest teacup. Sit down and think on this story, and then have a little talk with the potter. So, you are unique. Believe the hardship that you are facing is to make you a better person. Thank you.